4 cars full of personnel chase after them and shoot them. Huang and the taxi drivers come to their rescue when all hope seems lost. They hinder the military and put a distance between Kim and them. The movie begins with Kim Mon-sub, a widowed Seoul taxi driver, driving when students protest down the streets. They oppose the dictatorial Chun Doo-hwan rule, and the military frequently detain them. As a result, he frequently gets stuck in traffic and is involved in accidents. Furthermore, as the military implements martial law and curfew, he loses business. However, he keeps up and continues to learn new things, particularly about alternative paths. Kim, a single parent, does this every day to provide for his only daughter. Despite the lack of affection, his daughter understands the situation and loves him very much. On the other hand, Jürgen Peter Hinz Peter, a West German journalist specializing in post-war broadcasting services, learns from other reporters that the riot in South Korea has worsened. So he goes to the nation and disguises himself as a missionary to get admittance to the church. He quickly meets with a local reporter in Seoul to assess the situation. To his astonishment, a city in the country named Gwangju has the worst martial law. Because there's no access to Gwangju, no one outside the city knows what's happening there. And that the government even censors the whole front page of the local newspaper to conceal the truth. He's inspired to enter the city and expose the lie when he hears this. In the meantime, Kim gets treated to lunch by a friend. Suddenly, another driver informs him that a foreigner is looking for a taxi driver to transport him to Gwangju for 100,000 Korean won. Attracted by the money, Kim rushes to the meeting point to pick up the foreigner, who is, in fact, Peter. He assumes the other driver's identity and presents himself to Peter. Despite Kim's mediocre English, Peter accepts him. Unbeknownst to Kim, he's about to enter one of the most dangerous cities in South Korea. Upon entering Gwangju, the military confronts Kim and Peter. Kim immediately turns back and tries to convince Peter that they should return to Seoul, as he doesn't know about the city's condition. However, Peter threatens only to pay him if they get into Gwangju today. Kim reluctantly looks for an alternative route into the city and drives through. Despite his effort, the military confronts them once more. Fortunately, Peter poses himself as an essential businessman, and they manage to convince the military to let them pass. Inside Gwangju, Kim asks for an advance payment, and Peter pays him half the agreed amount. Then they travel across the city and discover the deserted streets and that all the stores are closed. Kim denies the severity of the city's situation, believing that the recent riots result from students who only go to school to protest, partly due to disinformation in the press. Peter starts filming with his camera, and the two men meet the student protesters riding a pickup truck, where the group leader, Yang Pyo, invites Peter aboard. Fortunately, one of the students, Gu Jae-sik, is fluent in English. The students celebrate and yell as they believe Peter can assist them in exposing the military administration. They also express their gratitude to Kim, who has put himself at risk to get Peter into the city. Then, Peter and the students plan to go to the hospital. However, Kim doesn't want to risk his automobile in the commotion, so he takes a U-turn and prepares to leave Peter. On the way, an older woman begs him to drive her to the hospital so she can look for her son. She expresses concern for her son's safety because the military has been injuring and even killing protesters in the past few days. In the busy hospital, the reporters and the local taxi drivers don't get along, as the reporters can't expose any of the military's genocide. On the other hand, taxi drivers usually help injured protesters and even damage their cars. Kim and the old lady enter the hospital to find the rooms full of injured and deceased protesters. Then, it turns out that the old lady's son is Yang Pyo, who's in the hospital with minor injuries. Later, Peter and Jae-sik confront Kim about leaving them earlier. In addition, Peter accuses him of stealing the equipment left in the back seat of his car. Kim then tries to reason his way out, but the local drivers and students reject his reasoning. As a result, he restores Peter's advance payment and vows to accompany him until the end. Later, Kim is surprised to receive free gas at the gas station. Jae-sik explains that taxi drivers are considered heroes because they're transporting injured protesters to the hospital, even if they know there's a chance the military will arrest them. After hearing this, Kim starts to see the condition and empathizes with the protesters and citizens of Gwangju. The people even warmly welcome him for bringing Peter into the city. The people make way for him, applaud them, and even give them homemade food. Then, the three go to a rooftop to get holistic footage of the riot. There, they befriend a local reporter. The reporter warns them that a foreign journalist isn't welcome there and that the military will hunt them down. He also says that not only Peter but also Kim and Jae-sik are in danger. On the ground, the people and the military start to clash. They witness the police hitting many people and even ganging up, regardless of their age and gender. Then, they see soldiers drag injured protesters to finish them off later. Moments later, despite the local reporter's advice, Peter and Jae-sik continue downstairs to grab better footage and help the injured. As Peter's condition worsens, Kim tries to save him, but he lashes out at him for intervening. Unbeknownst to him, officers from the Defense Security Command have disguised themselves as citizens and set their sights on Peter. Fortunately, they can flee safely. At night, Kim and Peter plan to get back to Seoul. Before separating, Peter assures Jae-sik that the world will see the crimes done in Gwangju. However, Kim's taxi breaks down, and Hwang Tae-sul, one of the local taxi drivers, meets them. Later, Hwang tows the cab to his shop for overnight repair. Kim then expresses his concern for his daughter's safety and gets anxious about it. Unfortunately, he can't call his daughter as the connection lines in the city have been cut off by the military. Due to the language barrier, Peter thinks Kim is anxious about the repair cost, so he insensitively pulls out his wallet. On the other hand, Kim blames the situation on Peter, and they get into a fight. After some time, Kim eventually gives in and accepts fate. Meanwhile, the military has identified Peter and plans to capture him and Kim. Back to the three men, they spend the night with Hwang and his family, where they're welcomed by warm supper and share laughter. On the other side, the local reporters are secretly printing exposing news to support the riot. Suddenly, the rest of the workers and the management break in to stop them, knowing that such an act would jeopardize the company and themselves. They reveal that the military control not just the newspapers but also the television news. This time, the channel reports about the riot wherein they underestimate the number of student victims and exaggerate the military's fallen officers. In addition, they also claim that the students have invited gangsters from Seoul to spread false rumors regarding the government. During dinner, they hear an explosion and head there to discover that the false news results in the rioters wreaking havoc on the TV station. Suddenly, when Peter starts to film the turmoil, the military recognizes him and chases them. They hastily run to an abandoned building. Unfortunately, one of Peter's film rolls falls off, and Jae-sik volunteers to grab it. Downstairs, the military has waited for him, and they capture him. They then take Jae-sik hostage and ask Peter to hand over the camera and the rolls. Kim wants to save Jae-sik, but Jae-sik sacrifices himself instead. He shouts in English, saying Peter should save the footage and himself from unveiling the truth to the world. So, Peter and Kim abandoned Jae-sik and fled with heavy hearts. In a dark alley, Kim witnesses the soldiers torturing the injured rioters. Then, one of the pursuers corners Kim and confronts him, accusing him of being a communist. They immediately get into a fight, but Kim is defeated quickly. Fortunately, Peter comes to his aid, and they run back to Hwang's house. The next day, Kim leaves early to go back to his daughter. But to his surprise, Hwang sees him off with an open heart. He gives him a secret route and a new car plate to avoid the military as they're now searching for a Seoul taxi. In addition, Peter has also left the entire payment for him. He apologizes for leaving the Gwangju people to their fight alone and leaves. Then, he stops at the nearby town of Suncheon to repair his car and immediately calls her daughter to apologize. Fortunately, his daughter is safe with his landlord's family. Then, he goes to a market to buy some souvenirs for her. Upon eating breakfast, he hears and reads false rumors regarding the Gwangju riots, just as the military wanted. In addition, he's also reminded of the Gwangju locals' kindness and can't shake off his empathy towards them. He follows his heart and calls his daughter once more to apologize, as he'll endanger himself again by returning to Gwangju. He then rushes to Hwang's home to find that he's in the hospital. As he walks through the hospital's corridor, he realizes that the condition has gravely worsened. Furthermore, Jae-sik is found dead in a rice field after being dragged off by the military. He then finds Peter in shock and Hwang crying. He encourages Peter to rise and tell the world about the abomination. He convinces Peter to pick up his camera to film all of it. Suddenly, one of Hwang's friends informs them that the troops are shooting at the people celebrating a major holiday. They then rush to the place to find that the airborne brigade soldiers have barricaded the streets, and the confrontation has turned into a one-sided massacre. The soldiers even mercilessly shoot at the people trying to save the injured. They also see some students waving a white flag. Still, they're shot to death, followed by another shootout at the injured to annihilate the rioters. So, Hwang, Kim, and the local taxi drivers decide to drive their taxis to save the injured. Some drivers even deliberately go toward the soldiers to hinder their sight. At the same time, others crawl to rescue the wounded while the soldiers are shooting at them. A student drives a truck to make a barricade when the military corner them. Seeing the chance, the people swarm the street to save the injured. After the attempt, they manage to save some of the injured. Still, the soldiers march through and shoot at the people, resulting in more casualties. Peter can't bear the scene but has to film it all to uncover the horror. On the other hand, Kim and the others are safe. After being reminded of their duty, Kim and Peter rush to leave the city. Once more, Kim hesitates to go to the people, but he strengthens his heart this time. Exiting the town, they notice that the military barricaded all the secret accesses. Peter then hides his camera, and they disguise themselves again. Kim states that he's taking a foreign business person away from the turmoil, but the soldier doesn't believe them. A young soldier, Sergeant First Class Park, checks his car and finds Kim's old car plate, but he stays silent and lets them pass through, as he's also conflicted by the massacre. Unfortunately, the soldiers receive orders through the radio not to allow foreigners to pass. So Kim breaks through the barricade by force, and the soldiers open fire, but Sergeant Park sits by and watches without firing. In addition, 4 cars full of personnel chase after them and shoot them. Huang and the taxi drivers come to their rescue when all hope seems lost. They hinder the military and put a distance between Kim and them. Despite being shot at, they prioritize Kim and Peter's safety. One by one, the taxi drivers get into accidents and are annihilated. After some time, Huang lets the two go and drives backward to ram himself into the pursuing cars. Later, Kim and Peter manage to get out at the sacrifice of the innocent lives of Gwangju. In the airport, Peter outsmarts the security by booking 2 flights under his name to divert their attention. He hides his film rolls in metal containers. Lastly, he asks for Kim's full name and phone number to repay him once he fully publishes his recordings. However, Kim doesn't want it but eventually writes his name and phone number in Peter's notebook. They then hug their unexplainable bond and say their final goodbye. Moments later, Kim comes home to his daughter, who has been waiting for him. After some time, Peter shares the footage with his superiors, spreading the news worldwide. After that, he searches for Kim Sabak only to learn that Kim provided a false name and phone number. 23 years later, Peter received a Human Rights Award in South Korea for his publication on the Gwangju Uprising. In his speech, he expresses his gratitude to Kim Sabak and hopes to see him again someday. Then, Kim, still a taxi driver, reads a newspaper article about Peter's speech and achievements, including his gratitude towards him. However, Kim murmurs that he's more grateful to Peter and that he misses him too. Later, Peter tries to search for Kim, but he dies in 2016 before they can meet again. The movie ends with the footage of the honest Peter, who thanks Kim Sabak. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.